changing my voice, and I'm not racist. This video is a review on the argument of the white cultural problem. Again, it's a review of the argument by a half-white man, me. Point number one, their forefathers and foremothers were yoked to racist oppressors, and those racist oppressors raised them. Sometimes your grandparents are also instrumental in raising people. Some people were raised by their grandparents. Very fair argument. The Civil Rights Act was, in 1964. To put things in perspective, my parents were born in the 40s. Okay, they were born in the 40s. So if someone else has parents that are as old as mine and they're my age, I'm in my 40s now, then, say they're white, then they were born in a time when the Civil Rights Act hadn't passed yet. Things were still segregated, okay? And that goes into their teenage years, into the 50s, and then into the 60s. So say they're born in 44. In 1964, they're 20 years old, okay? So it's fairly silly to think that racism went away or that it's not affecting things. And the word racist is like the word rapist because they're historically known for raping and for saying things like stay away from the white girls, and that was their main concern. The word racist isn't like the word money, for example. It's like the word rapist because the first concern they have is sexual control. Look at eugenics, scientific racism, for example. It was very much about sexual control and breeding, right? In fact, the word eugenics is from EU, meaning good, and the word genes, right? Good genes is what eugenics means, right? And it was about controlling people in order to improve the racial qualities of certain groups and to impair the racial qualities of certain groups. Okay. 2, they even often argue that their race fought for this country and they want to keep it the way it is. When I was younger, I heard this argument a lot more, but it's still being made quite often, that, that their forefathers fought for this country against various races, against various types of people, and they want to keep it the way it is, and they're referring to, the white establishment structure, the white power structure, right, from the bottom to the top. It's a structure. It has a bottom, it has a top, right? Point number 3, as a group, they tend to belittle people who do not have money and a high social status. Okay. When the degree of assimilation into an evil country is one good sign of the degree of evil in a person. So if America, for example, was an evil country, whether it is or not, and someone is like, hey, I'm the president, or hey, I'm the police chief, or whatever, right? That's a high degree of assimilation. However, if you're from another country, like my father, right? You're an African, and you come to America, and then you work your way up from being penniless to being a brain surgeon, and they're cheating you every step of the way, okay, that's not the same as a true assimilation, especially if you are the parent of the most righteous person that ever lived. Point number 4, they are clannish, right? Why is it called the Ku Klux Klan, right? From a Scottish word, I believe it is clan. The clans of Scotland, right? Connor MacLeod from the Clan MacLeod, right? The movie Highlander, right? They are, and of course there was this, they got the idea of the burning the cross is a signal, as the story goes, is a signal fire, right? They're symbolizing things, they're signaling things, right? They are clannish, and there are various clandestine, right? Secretive, right? Covert, clandestine efforts to cheat people in the intelligence community, law enforcement groups, social clubs, corporate groups, political groups, hate groups, educational groups, and more, right? Social groups, political groups, economic groups, okay? There are various efforts to cheat people while these people as a group are clannish. For example, if you go to the South in many places, white people stick together. Hell, you go to Almaden in San Jose, supposedly one of the least racist places in the country, they're still very clannish, right? Almaden, right? The West Side, right? There's people, not far away, Campbell and Sunnyvale, Santa Clara. These people have a kind of close-knit community. Some have, friends of other races, okay, but they're still a very clannish group, okay? Especially when we're talking about whites who are Jewish, right? Very clannish. They have their own synagogues, right? It's basically white Jews only in those synagogues, basically. You see what I'm saying? So they're very clannish, and they have subgroups of clannish groups. Okay. Of course, the LGBT community, right? They're very much, they socialize with each other to a high degree, and they have a certain social status and a certain financial status that means that it does more damage. For example, if you're a racist, homeless person, you're not that much of a threat to black people, basically. But if the president is racist, it's a bigger problem. So when we see a society that plays stupid about that idea right there, that concept, we know that it's a racist society. Why wouldn't you be honest about it and say, yeah, that would be a problem? And, chopping up to just Donald Trump or some or one or two Republicans is laughable. The whole system is racist. We see the trickle down white social norms, right? We see the fraternities, right? The Greek societies in college are nearly identical to the types of people we see as politicians. They're basically the same crowd. Meghan Merkel, for example, who married Prince Harry, was in a sorority, and these people are everywhere. Okay, and these people, to some degree, they do mix, but they mix with white LGBT supremacy in mind. Okay, point number 5. Various things show us that the system is evil, including wealth distribution, inheritances, the failed war on drugs, psychological operations, and the history of psychological operations. 9 million people starve to death in the world as a result, every year, of Western culture and globalism, with the accompanying proxy control mechanisms, right? Proxy, right? Like the proxy wars in the Cold War, right? There's still proxy wars continuing. You look at Syria, for example. Syria is a great example of a proxy war that just devastated that nation. The fact that people never recover from slavery and other racial issues we see. Okay, so there's various things that show us that the system is evil, including these things, right? Why would, in a civilized society, would black people own less than 0.5% of the wealth and be around 12-13% of the population? That's racist as hell. That's outrageous. And we know the education system is structured to give white people the upper hand. It's in their language. It's for them. It's by them. Okay, black people may speak English as their only language more often than not. Okay, that's probably the case. But, it doesn't come naturally to them. Right? You ever hear, he's a natural at baseball or whatever. You see, it doesn't come naturally to them. White culture does not come naturally to them. I remember one guy said, he said there's nothing more backwards than a white brain in a black body, right? A white mind, right, in a black body, because that gives them the upper hand. So when you know the system is rigged to give you the upper hand, and you see that these people are struggling, why don't you try to fix it? And he creates straw man argument, and he put up some kind of corrupt politician like a DC mayor or something, saying, well, this guy mismanaged funds, so what do you expect us to do? For whatever reason, we can't find qualified candidates, and they're throwing people in the meat grinder, so to speak, and under the bus, and it's obvious what's going on. Okay, so for the second part of this video, I'd like to focus on why it is stupid to argue that I should not challenge or expose the cultures. They used to call black people, they call quote unquote spooks. They say we spook them and they look spooked, and we wear white like our spirits, and we spook the spirit out of them, right, and force them into a white culture, right? That's why they call them spooks. Okay, the white robes of the Klan stands for the spirit, right? The cultural spirit, the principles, the characteristics, the spirit of the culture of white supremacy, which just happens to include the races. So first and foremost, the Klan was culturalists, right? They were cultural supremacists, cultural imperialists. And part of their culture was to put people of certain white races and bloodlines above everybody else. That is important to understand that. Okay, so point number 1. They chose a theater arts culture. Why they argue it is a free nation in a way that fooled people when they were younger to a large degree. People know a movie is a movie, and that propaganda is propaganda. So it's stupid to say, hey, you can't expose that it's a racist culture and that we deal in propaganda and not reality. They know this. Okay, we'll get to the numbers of people who are likely to respond, and you'll see how ridiculous it is. Well, people don't think about it that much, and they might change their minds. We'll get to that. Point number 2. Everyone knows that the cultures they are in are stupid, except moral precision. Everyone knows if you're a jock, you're a greedy corporate person, if you're a yes man, whether you're a nice doctor or lawyer, okay, that is stupid to be in that culture. They know that. That's like St. Hoggle from the Labyrinth, He's like, I'm a coward and Jared scares me, kind of thing that he doesn't know he's in a stupid culture. They know they're having their Hoggle moment. You see what I'm saying? Point number 3. White people have a pre-existing bad reputation as a group because of history, Okay, you think history makes white people look good? I'd like, put it in the comments. I'd love to hear it. We brought them technology while we were raping and killing them. Okay, no one buys that bullshit. You see what I'm saying? So, because of history, trickle-down corporate greed, politics, law enforcement, hate groups, privilege, denial, fragility, guilt, and more, the more populated party, the Democratic Party, propounds their faults in regards to privilege, entitlement, denial, fragility, guilt, and more. They describe as white privilege as an invisible package of unearned assets. Invisible, right? It's like culture. In a sense, culture is invisible, right? The spirit of a culture, right? It's an invisible, but it's there, right? An invisible package of unearned assets. Okay? And they're leveraging them and they're playing stupid. And obviously, that's a white cultural problem that is not just corporate. It's not just the skinheads or the Klan. It's not just, the Oath Keepers or whoever. Okay? It is pervasive. And everybody from every race who has a white culture, especially white people. Point number 4. One's right to vie with truth for a worthwhile relationship is sacred. It's stupid to say, hey, don't let this guy do that. So when people look around, they'll see nobody vying for truth for a worthwhile relationship. Just kind of garbage, frat, orgy, swinger relationships. That's garbage. Everyone knows that's garbage. That's like arguing marrying Kelly Bundy and sharing her with your fucking neighbors and your friends and family isn't a garbage relationship. Everyone knows that the relationships that we see, except for my parents, because they can brag that they bore the fruit of bearing me, the top martial artist ever possible. Everyone knows that their relationships, their cultures are garbage. Going back to the point I made before, okay, obviously except for mine, okay, where I said everyone knows that their cultures are stupid. They know their cultures and the relationships that are the fruit of their cultures are stupid. Point number 5. Maybe again, if you don't agree, put it in the comments. I'd love to hear it. I'm not bullying anybody with this video. This is to review the white cultural problem arguments I've made without using that phrase to make sure that everyone knows that I'm not racist and that it's fair and there's a difference between this and hate speech and so on and so forth. Anyway, all right. Point number 5. I'm running out of time, so let's just shoot through these next points, 5 through 12. It's hard enough to live in reality due to the low life intelligence of people. The low life intelligence. They have a low life intelligence, okay, of people with pathetic lives that are not worth living. They all respond like little kids that are afraid to grow up. Why should there be a concerted effort to silence me? So you see a gold digger. Gold digger's like, hey, you know what? Being a gold digger is wrong, and there's, it's part of white supremacy. Because white people have most of the money. She's like, well, no shit. Now fuck off, you scrub. But not in those words. You see what I'm saying? I go to a prostitute or an escort. I go to a sorority chick. Hey, you're part of the establishment of white supremacy because you're in a sorority. Okay, that in Alabama, for example, they didn't let black women into white sororities till 2013. Okay, you're part of the Greek system. They refer to the problem as a Greek system problem, not a Southern or Alabama or red state problem. Okay. They're going to be like, yeah, I know that. Oh, yeah, that's sad. I'm sorry, but, I'll keep that in mind. And they're going to keep it. You see what I'm saying? So why the fuck would you all gang up on me and say, keep him from saying that? Keep him from, it's fucking retarded. You see what I'm saying? I mean, go through the list of people. An emo, a rocker, hey, a Satanist, hey, you're an occultist, you're worshiping the devil. Well, you don't say. You see what I'm saying? Point number 6. I decided not to reproduce. I'm not even going to have any kids because your cultures are so toxic and evil. And you're still like, keep him from saying that. That's fucking retarded. Eventually I'll be gone and that's it. You'll never hear the voice of reason ever again. Remember, they're changing my voice the way it sounds in the speech patterns. Point number 7. I will be 42 soon. Not only am I not going to have any kids, I will be 42 this year. 40 fucking 2. And then I pop my collar on a college campus or something. Hey, young lady, you know what I'm saying? Probably not. Point number 8. Governments and corporations have made it clear that you cannot trust anyone who isn't saying the types of things I am saying, and even then one must be cautious. Everyone knows you can't trust anyone else. It's like Donald Trump saying, he's saying, and people still voted for him anyway, that's a great example, where he said, he could just stick his finger in a female's pussy, and they just let him. Okay? So why do they let him? Do they let him because they don't know it's wrong, and they don't know that makes him a fucking whore? Hi, how you doing? Instead of shaking her hand, he does that. They let him because they're done. Well, I'm almost out of time. Point number 9. Gaslighting is a major part of white culture, and playing the game has trampled white culture. Point number 10, their root cultures went into creating a system that is for them by them. 11, they are lying about freedom's rights, constitutional rights, and makes them look worse if people do not have freedom of speech when it won't even change the situation.